Okay, over to you, Evelina. Thank you.
Okay, so today I'm going to talk about Chinese pregnancy and childbirth beliefs. And my presentation will be about pregnancy, birth, Chinese pregnancy traditions, about doing the month, yin and yang, postnatal confinement rules. Can you all see that my slides are going further or?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Chinese people have their own health beliefs and practices, mainly based on the facts that food, illness, and medications are usually classified as hot or cold, according to the perceived effects on the body. Health is believed to be balance of positive yang and negative yin energy in the body. This is no different when talking about pregnancy and childbirth. Pregnancy. Many Chinese people, when they are ill or pregnant, assume a sick role in which they depend heavily on others for assistance. Pregnancy and especially childbirth are believed to disturb the balance of hot and cold required for good health. Because of this, various dietary and behavioral practices are customary to keep the mother and baby physically healthy, including family members will share caretaking duties, eating special soups and chicken broth. They would not eat lamb because of the belief that it may cause baby to have epilepsy, because pronunciation of word lamb is similar to the word for epilepsy in some Chinese languages. Also not eating pineapple because it is believed to cause miscarriage. This is to ensure both mother and baby the physically and mentally healthy as a result of love and support they receive. Birth. Often the laboring woman's mother or mother-in-law attends childbirth, rather than the father of the child, as it is sometimes acceptable in Western practices. Infants may be separated from their mother for at least the first 24 hours. This tradition is practiced to allow the postpartum woman to rest and recover. The Western practices of leaving infants with their mother may not be available in public hospitals in some Chinese cities. Also, some women may observe a period of confinement after birth, during which they rest, dress warmly, limit showers, and eat only foods classed as hot, which is quite contradictory to Western practices, which encourage early return to walking and showering after birth. During the month, for thousands of years, new mothers have taken part in Chinese pregnancy tradition of, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, it's probably something like Zoyizi, translated as doing the month or sitting in. This act is also known as postnatal confinement and is documented as early as the 1st century, recorded in the Book of Rites, one of the foundational classics of Chinese tradition from the Zhou dynasty. Postnatal confinement is simply the first 30-40 days after birth, where the mother does not leave home and entertain visitors or shower. Most new mothers will be cared for by their own mothers or mother-in-laws, who will either visit daily or move in for the time period. The traditional belief stems from an understanding that both the mother and baby have low immunity and need to be protected and nursed back to the full health. During the period of isolation, specific food and drinks are regularly prepared for the mother to help rebuild her body, shrink her uterus, and encourage lactation. This confinement period can also be referred as the 4th trimester. as it's a crucial period of time for the newborn to adjust to life in the world and the mother to recover. Yin and Yang. Yin and Yang is premise that underline all Chinese philosophy and is just as prevalent in both post-birth recovery traditions as it is in Chinese medicine, food choices, and even what temperature water they should drink. The basic principle is that your yin and yang must be balanced in every aspect of your life. As soon as the two fall out of balance, you are more prone to illness and disease. Many foods, medications, and illnesses fall into the categories and can be counteracted by increasing the opposite energy. When blood is lost through childbirth, the body falls into yin, coldness. A new mother will need to increase her yang to restore balance in her body. This is heavily reflected in the Chinese pregnancy rules. A good example is the dish pork knuckles mixed with ginger and black vinegar. The pork helps with calcium levels, the ginger removes wind from the body, and the meaty broth provides hydration and nutrition. Every ingredient helps to remove or undo an imbalance. Postnatal confinement rules. Postnatal confinement rules vary, and typically each family will decide individually how to follow them. Family members, especially mothers and mothers-in-law, will advise from their own experience and knowledge, passing down wisdom that will be further shared down the line in the future. The listed rules are more of a guideline. The primary principle is to avoid catching a chill to prevent illness later on, including joint problems, whilst resting, sleeping, feeding a newborn baby, and eating only. Rules commonly include avoid cold drinks, coffee, or any water that isn't tepid or hot. Do not shower or wash hair. Do not leave the house, and minimize activity and exercise. Avoid raw fruit and vegetables. Keep food bland and unflavored. Avoid wind, fans, air conditioning, opening windows. Do not climb stairs. Do not have sexual relations. Do not cry. Additionally, strict rules may encourage new mothers to stay in bed for the first 2 weeks. They may also be discouraged from watching TV, reading, or access to their phones to avoid becoming too emotional over external drama or problems. Ingredients such as red dates, sesame oil, and ginger are key ingredients in medicinal broths and soups during the time period. Binding of the stomach is also encouraged to prevent the possibility of organ prolapses, improve the waistline, and aid organs in returning to their original locations prior to pregnancy. Modern day twist. For many, the traditional stricter version of staying home is viewed as outdated or has been adapted to keep it relevant in the 21st century. With time restrictions on maternity leave and general need for access to technology, it's often not wholly possible to maintain a complete sitting-in month, so solutions are cropping up. Around mainland China, luxurious confinement centers are appearing en masse. These offer 24 hours assistance from trained nurses, dietary advice, and pre-cooked meals, and delivered access to doctors and an additional layer of peace, more control over how to observe the period. A stay in one of these centers can cost more than 100,000 Chinese money. I'm not sure how they called, or almost 15.5 US dollars, 1,000 US dollars. According to Chinese news outlet Sixtone, who also highlights that with new control comes modernization. These centers will provide a weekly hand washing with washcloths soaked in TSM, which is traditional Chinese medicine, combining the aversion to washing with the benefits of TSCM exposure. After giving birth and sitting the month, a woman is recognized as a mother, as well as wife and a daughter. Her position in the family is elevated, so it's important she's allowed the time to rest and recover in order to fulfill her new role efficiently. These centers are a combination of scientific and traditional Chinese methods, allowing flexibility to modern issues. As recently as 2013, cases of heat stroke and subsequent death have occurred in new mothers attempting to avoid catching a chill. Adjusting the age-old traditions to continue allowing new mothers the option to recover fully whilst preventing harm is a necessary move. And that's it. I know it's a bit short.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any questions for, well, any discussion or questions? For me, I think the thing that I found interesting was the binding of the kind of putting the organs back into place, like binding around the body.
Yeah.
I didn't like that idea at all. I was just really curious about that, really. So.
Yeah, and for me, it was the thing that they were not advised to like cry or this not allowing for emotions to flow freely.
Yeah, I found that quite harsh. No crying.
What if you can't help it? Then what? What happens if you do cry? What the guilt you must feel for that, as well as potentially what people might say if they see you crying.
Did you see quite a lot of similar things with the Japanese one that Jill presented? In regards and some other cultures as well, the hot foods, the warm, the cold ones.
Yeah.
The isolation that they are placed upon, I think there are common themes that they are starting to emerge, and I think it would be quite helpful as a team if we can start reflecting on that. Well, what are the common themes, so they don't shock us if we see one of our ladies that this is imposed or self-imposed in that sense. They might not pick up all the traditions, but we might see some of them.
I was wondering, Evelina, you said something about the on a like sick role, is it, in pregnancy? Is that what your presentation was saying?
Sorry, say again.
Were you saying that they perceive it as take on a slight sick role, like a role as a sick person?
Right, yeah.
And I was wondering, do you know anything more about that?
No.
And that was similar to the Japanese as well, because they were told to stop working and kind of be just looking after themselves, sort of thing.
Yeah, there are quite a lot of things in common, but also with other ones. That was very good.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, it was really, really good. Any other thoughts, if anybody wants to add?
One of the thoughts linking up with the sick role, imagine that in your mind and in your culture, you need to adopt the sick role. Western world is really not prepared for that.
No.
And you need to continue working. The appointments are very spaced out. They are quite stressful sometimes. You go into a busy clinic instead of being in a quiet place. So again, the impact of that and how this might manifest from the mental health point of view or in regards to distress and anxiety or behavior, abnormal behaviors that might help us to think about our patients in a very different way.
Yeah, exactly, and especially as you said in terms of their mental health, really, because I think we've seen that. I think in terms of how they might describe themselves, isn't it? Their emotions in pregnancy.
I'm just thinking about the lady we had with Rachel. Do you remember? It was right at the beginning of when we expanded the service. And obviously there were more issues than just that, but certain things she was coming up with. I'm just thinking there was a bit of a lack of understanding maybe from us. I mean, she was very chaotic, and the husband as well, but it was like, I think we had known a bit more about her culture as well that time when we did them. It's a very sad case anyway, but yeah.
I was reading an article recently, or a program, I can't quite remember, about how in China they've now stopped the policy of only one child, and actually the birth rates have dropped because they're so conditioned to only have one child, and apparently it's very, very expensive to have a child in China, and so the birth rates dropped, and their population, I think they were trying to boost it a bit.
We've seen loads of our mums that they are a single child themselves. Do you remember?
Yeah.
The Chinese ladies, loads of them. And again, what does this mean culturally?
I was thinking about that bit at the end where you said that they don't become a wife or a daughter until they're a mum. So all those ladies perhaps have miscarriages, and actually what that pressure and stuff, that's or if you can't have children, that struggle must be really hard.
Where does this leave you socially or in the family? And the rejection on the top of.
And I was slightly shocked by saying that in that month that you can't have any sort of sexual relationships. It's just like, surely that's just standard. Does that really need to be in there? Do we need to? It's almost like, gosh, that worries me that has to actually be a rule, a month in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay, thank you. Any more before we move on? No. Okay.
One question I had: is anyone doing the Korean?
Yes, Lydia.
I think it'll be interesting to see if there's any other themes emerging, because we see some of them, and I know it's a huge population, particularly in New Malden area, but we don't see them at all in Kingston.
Yeah.
So I think that would be really interesting for us and trying to outreach more this community. Thank you.
Okay, so we will hand over to Jordan. Thank you. Thank you, Evelina.
Thank you.
Thanks, Evelina. That was great. I'm just gonna get my PowerPoint set up. Okay, can everyone see that? My first slide.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I chose to look at the Quasar people in South Africa, partly because I used to live there. Well, I was born there, and I actually studied Quasar at school, but only for 1 year. So my I don't remember these words. Probably didn't even learn them as well. So, but I'll try to pronounce it as best as I can. But yeah, I can't guarantee that my pronunciation is going to be great. I've also, at the end of the presentation, I spoke to one of my friend's mums who is Quasar, and she's sent me a voice note of just some stuff around pregnancy amongst Quasar people, and just to add that on right at the end. So the overview of this presentation, I'm going to do a bit of a background of the about Quasar people in South Africa, and it's actually pronounced Nwaza, because it's got some traditions. Its language stems from the Bantu people in Southern Africa, but the Sans and there's another cultural group that's indigenous to South Africa, and it's got some inspiration from or influence from that language. So I'm going to speak about the background, then I'm going to go on to speak about birth, and then the practices of Safudu, Inkaba, Mbeleko, and then naming the baby, and then some modern day practices. So Quasar is both an ethnic group and language spoken in South Africa. It is generally accepted that the Xhosa form part of the wider group of indigenous Bantu-speaking people in South Africa with origins in East Central Africa. From there, they moved in waves to Southern Africa, with the Xhosa people moving down the east coast until their movements were curtailed by environmental conditions and eastward movements of European settlers after 1652. So their homeland is primarily in the modern day of Eastern Cape, but you'll find Xhosa-speaking people or Xhosa people all over South Africa, in both rural and urban areas, some urban areas such as Cape Town and Johannesburg. So there's 8 million Xhosa people in South Africa. Quasar Dance is a very, very powerful expression of their practices, beliefs, and values, along with singing and celebrating is also a big part of their culture. And I'll speak a bit more about that as we go on. And the tradition is modeled on the aspects of ancestral worship. So I'll be speaking a bit more about that because that's got quite a big significance. So 60% of Xhosa people are Christians. However, there are also more traditional beliefs to do with spirits, and also I think a lot of old traditions and Christianity has kind of been merged together as well. Like in a lot of other African cultures, lobola is also given when in marriage, when so lobola is when a cattle, so I was going to say a goat, but it's cattle, and cattle is given from the husband to the wife's family, and it's a transfer the right to the woman's fertility and thus the children from the union to the husband's group, and serves as a compensation for the loss of women's labor in her parental home. This is also still done in urban areas, but I think it's money, not always cattle, that is also given, and also gifts as well. So birth in the Xhosa culture is an important rite of passage and therefore is treated with due respect, honor, and celebration. So traditionally, the birthing mother is attended to by a grandmother or an elder in her rondavel, so the grandmother or the elder has got a lot of experience in birthing babies, midwifery, and a rondavel is, so this picture in the corner here is a rondavel, and it is a hut made of mud with a thatched roof, and they're usually circular, but I think in more modern times they're changing a bit, and sometimes you can see them as being rectangular and made with corrugated iron roofs. After the birth, the mother and the new baby are secluded until the cord falls off, and the grandmother aids the process by mixing ash, sugar, and a poisonous plant called umtuma together and rubbing the paste onto the newly severed cord, which is believed to aid out the drying process. And the umbilical cord usually takes between 10 to 14 days to fall off, but can also take up to 21 days. So Safudu, this is one of the practices that is done. So once the cord has fallen off, the baby is introduced to the close female family members as well as to the women of the wider community, and this is when Safudu is performed. So the Safudu, this tradition comes from the plant that is burnt, which is called the Safudu tree, which is burnt in a fire around which the women gather, and it produces a very pungent smoke, which the baby is then floated over upside down 3 times, which can cause severe reaction of coughing and sometimes screaming. Then the baby is given to the mother, who passes the baby under her left knee and then her right knee. This ceremony is very important, and it's believed to make the baby stronger in spirit and protect her from future evil, and make her stand strong against future evil as well. The baby is then washed and smeared with a white chalk called ingeki, mixed with ground mitombati wood, a sweet smelling substance that lasts for many weeks, so kind of this white paste that is all over the baby is quite similar to other African cultures and Caribbean cultures, as I think we spoke about. In Nigeria, I think they do a similar thing. Inkaba. So Inkaba is the ritual of burying the cord and the placenta. And this has great significance to the clan and seals the attachment of the baby to her ancestral lands. Inkaba then comes to mean one's ancestral home and symbolizes the relationship between the individual and their clan, the land, and the spiritual world. The burial place of Inkaba is a place where one must go and dream and communicate with ancestors. Babies are also seen as very important because they are bringing a gift or bringing hope or bringing something special to the new world. And yeah, this process is really important because of the significance of ancestors in Quasar culture. So Imbeleko is also another ritual and is a ceremony of welcoming the child into the greater community. So where a goat is slaughtered and then the clan is invited to attend the feast. So this goat also has a lot of significance in Quasar culture, and the skin of the goat then becomes sacred item for the new clan member, the baby who will sleep on it in the future in times of trouble, signifying a desire for connection with the ancestors. So naming the baby were named with the family prefix or suffix and may be named to signify events like thunderstorm or lightning or wishes the family may have, like hope or Themba. I also had a friend I remember called Precious. So kind of reading this kind of made more sense to me why her name was Precious. And I thought that was a very beautiful name, but reading this kind of gives it more, has given me more of an understanding to why she was named that. And at the ceremony, a singer is invited to praise the ancestors, elaborating on their power, their prowess and qualities in a bid to instill the baby a sense of belonging and responsibility in the clan and community. So again, this is another celebration. So in the modern day, some of these rituals aren't performed as much as they used to be, partly because of kind of urban areas and having babies in hospitals. Sometimes the mothers aren't able to take the baby's placenta for the celebration of Inkaba, which I think a lot of this is seen as really, really bad, and because of the significance and importance of Inkaba. And so it's actually been encouraged for people who haven't had that done when they were young, they're able to do a similar ritual as they become an adult, so that they can have this connection with their ancestors. So this is actually the end of my presentation, but I'm just going to go on to get the voice note. Okay, please let me know if you can hear the sound.
Perhaps we could talk about pregnancy before marriage. So as you know, Zen is Xhosa. So we are Xhosa. So I'll talk on behalf of the Xhosa nation as before civilization and also before the kind of modernization that we have. So pregnancy was basically before marriage was basically very uncommon. It was frowned upon and it was really unaccepted. In fact, very, very uncommon, simply because, number one, girls were monitored right through their growth stages, and when they went to school, they went in groups, and when they came home, they would do our errands together, and they would always be with their parents. But one of the reasons that pregnancy before marriage was not common was because of the fact that when girls started puberty and they started, developing a bit, there was rather an unfortunate tribal custom. I can't even say it's culture. It was a practice which is very, very sad and unfortunate. And it still happens in other countries, whereby when girls get into puberty and they start shaping as little girls, then some older men would actually just identify the girl, or the girl would actually be given to the family, or the men would come and ask for the girl. And so young girls were getting married at 14, 15, 16, which is so sad, because I mean, when we speak to our grandparents and grandparents, some of them were basically babies at 15, 16, they were married. So therefore, boys would literally marry a young girl, and it used to be older boys. So you'd find that a 14-year-old would get married to a 21-year-old or something like that, and then they would have babies, or even older sometimes. So, which is why that tradition was fought by many people. It still happens in the deep rural areas, and then the police would interfere now, because there's civil rights and women's rights movements that have actually taken over. So the practice is called Ugutoala, which is UKUTHWUALA, Ugutoala, which means you're basically forcing a young girl into marriage so that you can get the cows and. So pregnancy was very much uncommon, and any girl who was pregnant or who never got married and got pregnant would be frowned upon, would be an insult of the village, would be called names. It was really, really bad. But nowadays, pregnancy has taken a different spin, which is again very, very sad, because of poverty. Why am I saying that? I'm saying because of the level of unemployment and poverty, young girls basically leave school because they cannot do anything, and then they get, sugar daddies, or they get all these commercial Chinese and Nigerian guys that work for them, and they give them babies, and they don't use contraceptives. And the sad part is that because the government has got a grant system whereby for each and every child you get a stipend, which is basically a government grant to feed little children. So because people are unemployed, and girls are unemployed, they would have a child, 2 or even 3 children, because for each child you get a government grant. I think it's 800 and odd rands. So then a person would actually get that money, but feed the children. They would have 3 children, and they are not married, and then they would use that money as their income, and then still feed the children something very, very basic, and get that money for themselves, which is also quite sad. So you've got a situation around pregnancy that has got 2 dimensions. One, which was forced by culture previously, when there was no civilization, which is young girls falling pregnant because the parents wanted to sell them, wanted to get cows because the older men would marry them, blah, 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 where pregnancy was uncommon. But now pregnancy is extremely common in the 2020s or late 2000s, because of the grants, where children are having 2, 3 children so that they can be able to get a grant. So that's the story about pregnancy. I can't speak about the others. I will chat again perhaps tomorrow if there's anything else you want to talk.
So yeah, I thought that was a really lovely summary of kind of looking at kind of past traditions and more modern day situations that are taking place. And I thought she summarized it really lovely at the end as well. If anyone has any questions, then I'll try my best to answer. If I can't answer, then I can speak to my friend's mum later on, and I can always email you some of the answers she gives.
I really like the Inkaba kind of ritual. That's quite nice, actually, kind of connecting to the earth, kind of your land and things like that. It's quite nice. I'm not sure my children will want to be connected to Hounslow as much as other areas might seem more appealing, if you know what I mean. But yeah.
Yeah, but very, very much about the, I suppose, the transgenerational aspect, isn't it? In terms of, you know, back to your heritage, isn't it? And it's because with these days of movement so much, isn't it? You know, that I suppose it's very much stressing that, isn't it? Stressing that your birth.
But also quite thoughtful about that person's future and wishes for them, in the sense the name, good characteristics as a person, and also giving them almost like something to take with you, like the skin of the sheep that will protect you or will comfort you. So I think that the element of comfort and thinking about you and the future is really nice.
Yeah, it's a very positive culture. That
Very.
a lot of celebrations and dancing and singing, and yeah.
And thinking about how it compares to the modern world, in the sense of everything is very meaningful, very earthy, very non-materialistic, if you want. Compared to now, we're just flooded with presents, visits, flowers, which is lovely, but how different it is. And I think this one is almost like allows an easier start, I just think. There's no sense of isolation, which is one of the modern problems we have with the perinatal or the postpartum period, the isolation. And I'm not referring to the COVID-related one, in general, really. And I think in that sense, those cultures, they seem to be really managing that very well when we reflect upon the ones that have been presented.
Do you know?
Yeah, I thought it was quite interesting with like the different kind of having the waist for the umbilical cord to fall off and having that isolation period, and then going on to incorporating the females of the family with the baby, and then going on to get the wider community with males and females. Kind of goes in stages, but I thought that was quite interesting as well.
But in a very nice way. It's almost like that period of waiting for the cord to fall off. It's almost like you allow for the bonding to develop a little bit in a very protected environment, waiting for something to happen, and then celebrating with the rest of the community. So, yeah, I think it was a lovely one, this one, the traditions. And
Jordan, do you know if, in terms of if people that have travelled and are now living in the UK, you know, generations later, I wonder, do they try and reenact that somehow?
I'm not sure. It was actually really, really hard to research.
Yeah.
And my friend, she's still living in South Africa, so I'm not sure. And I was trying to find out some stuff about that, but it was actually really quite hard to research. There's not too much out there.
Which probably is the worry of things dying out, really, isn't it? If you can't find it, what does that say?
Yeah, for sure. I was kind of wanting to look at kind of research papers, and there was really not that many at all. Some
Yeah.
couple of blog posts.
Okay, any other thoughts and ideas or feedback for Jordan?
No, it was well researched, Jordan, like our previous one, well researched.
Yeah, lots of good work going into it.
I've also got one on about trafficked women, which is not really a culture. I don't know if you call it a culture, but it's quite self-explanatory. So I'll put it on. I think it's on the shared drive. So I don't really think
actually, Jordan, Lottie's going to change her date, so you can do yours after Sharon's done hers now.
Okay,
if you're still okay for that.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, because I think we're going to have time. So cool. Okay, so let's move on to Sharon's then. And if you want to give us an introduction.
Hello, everybody. Hi. Sorry, when you go on to write it, do I have to mute yourself? Or does it matter? Yeah, take it out. Okay. Can everybody see my slide? Is that okay for everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
I'll move.
So, Jamaican cultures and traditions. Around the world and throughout history, the birth of a child has been attended by certain rituals. Today,
I can't hear you very well, Sharon. Sorry.
They can't hear me.
They can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Maybe get your headset on. It might be a better mic for you, Sharon.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
yeah,
Can you hear me? Is that better?
Yeah. Yeah.
that's better.
Brilliant. I'll start. They're not using him. Leave it out, leave it out, leave it out. Okay, so around the world and throughout history, a child has been attended by certain rituals. Today, with most children born in hospital and prenatal and postnatal activities conforming to Western medicine guidance, many birth rituals have disappeared. Their replacements include the use of incubators, catheters, and calculations of Asperger's scores, which is a method of evaluating the heart rate, the respiratory system, muscle tone, skin color, and response to catheters in the nostrils. Next slide. Yeah. So slide 2 is the pre-birth and history. So not so long ago, many Jamaican children were born at home and subject to a number of different actions, none of which included the scores as indicated above. In Jamaican birth rituals were overseen by a nana or midwife and various forms and varieties from place to place, depending on the race and class. All, however, reflected a deep sense of connection to and respect for the spirit world. Today, retrenchants are strongest in rural areas. Preparation for labour and delivery. To prepare for births, the room had to have an open Bible on display. The nanas would anoint the mother's belly with castor oil, which would then later be given to both mother and child. This is certainly more pleasant than having the mother drink a glass of water in which her mother-in-law dipped her toes, as in the custom in Bel Air, India, or having her drink beer in which a purple onion has been boiled, as in
Guanamatala.
That's the one. Thanks, Shireen. So following the birth, Jamaican nanas dress the child's navel with nutmeg. The nana also blew smoke into the child's eyes, often from an old clay pipe, which these women traditionally smoked. In many Native American cultures, tobacco is registered as food for the gods, for the good spirits. The nanas then washed her own face with rum, and sometimes she herself took a stiff drink for her eyesight, since witnessing of each birth was said to have an effect on her sight. After birth, so following delivery, the mother and child were often isolated for 8 days, during which time the nana took control of the house. It was considered very important to protect mother and child from spiritual harm and any physical dangers that came with childbirth. A special broom was used to sweep out the room, and the sweepings were kept, perhaps to prevent others from getting hold of them. The child was marked with blue, and the scissors or knife used to cut the umbilical cord was watched carefully. Some sort of charm or guzu, often a strong smelling substance, was used to protect the child. The child was also washed in cold water that contained rum and a silver coin given by the father. The water and coins were later buried in the yard along with the afterbirth. The nana counted the knobs on the umbilical cord to determine how many children the mother was deemed to have. On the 10th day, the mother and child was taken outside to receive greetings as well as presents from family members and other visitors. The child was also named on that day. This practice is believed to have come from the West Africa beliefs that until the 8th day, the child's fate is uncertain and its personality, soul, is not fully formed. In addition, there was a possibility that the child could be a visitor from the spirit world. And if that was the case, then he or she must not be welcomed. If the child died during this period, it was believed that an evil spirit had arrived. These rituals are similar in those practices by the earliest Jamaicans, the Taínos. Although no data exists for Jamaica during this period, in Guyana, where descendants of Taínos still exist, it is interesting to note that the child is not regarded as an individual separate from his or her mother for the first 5 to 12 days. Both are considered polluted or ritually unclean and kept indoors to prevent contamination. The naming ceremony takes place 10 to 12 days following birth. And again, if the child dies, then it was considered not to have gained a social personality. Slide. No, I'll do the next one. The birthing tree. Oh, okay, no problem. The birthing tree. So in Jamaica, although the placenta is buried, it is more over a matter of necessity rather than ritual. It was the burial of the umbilical cord or navel string that attached ritualistic behaviours. This cord was not only buried in a special location, but a tree was planted in that spot. Coconut tree or breadfruit trees were the most popular types. That tree became known as a birth tree. This is where the term where your navel string is buried, which symbolizes a spiritual attachment to the place, to a place, come to that place, sorry. The tree becomes the child's property and that of his and her future. This is said to have helped to reinforce the concept of family land that is passed down from generation to generation. And the red navel string, the red string is often tied around a newborn's wrist or hair to run doppy, which means chase the ghosts away and ward off evil. Yep.
Okay, so hopefully you can hear me through my mask. So this is a little bit about the first year. So many parents will not cut an infant's hair before the child has started to speak. It is believed that cutting the hair will delay to start the speech. Also, fingernails of an infant should not be cut with scissors, as it might make the child grow up to be a thief. A pin may be used as the fingernails at the stage so they're very soft. And on the next slide, we have a little bit about in regards to communication. So the official language of Jamaica is English. However, Jamaican patois is an English-based Creole language within West African influences. Hopefully I do this right, Sharon, in the next bit. There are various common phrases, such as a greeting, which is wagwan. Is that right, Sharon?
Wagwan.
Wagwan, which means what's up. And also goa for go away.
Guan.
So, how do you say it?
Guan.
Guan. Ah, there we are. So yeah, so there's lots of different various phrases that are used with Jamaican patois. And also I watched a little bit on YouTube with different people talking about the use of kind of large body language and different facial expressions. So I just thought that was really important to put in there for us to consider. Thank you very much. And if anybody has any questions, let us know. There we are.
Great, thank you both. Have anybody got any questions for Sharon and Patricia?
Well, I don't have a question, but I know that when I had my son, I wanted to cut his hair before he could speak, and I did. And my aunt said it was like child abuse for cutting his hair, you know, because he hasn't started speaking properly. But the hair thing is quite, you know, significant in the Jamaican culture, not to cut a child's hair. My brother had his hair cut quite young and he has a lisp, so that to them that's evidence. If you cut it too wrong, they will have a lisp or a speech impediment. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I would like to say when Jordan was speaking about when she was researching, I found that the same thing, that I couldn't find too many research articles, or all the information that I was finding, you know, still good. It was just a lot of it was blog posts or YouTube videos or kind of interest, kind of tourism. So I did manage to ask a lot of friends about different cultures, but it was interesting. Me and Sharon have been talking about it, and what she knows and what my friend was talking about are different. But my friend did mention you need to be aware that cultures are different from obviously Jamaica than here, but also depending on where your family came from, the part of the island. So it needs to be something you need to be aware of, that the traditions and cultures might be completely different, even though it's still Jamaican. You just need to be aware of that. So I thought that was really interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good Jamaican culture. Is it that get pregnant women, you know, get sort of a reflux? I don't know. I've sort of seen it more in pregnant women. I don't know whether that's something that Sharon or Shireen knows anything or has seen.
Sorry, what you're saying is the mother gets more reflux or the child?
Yeah, just say, you know, that years gone back, no, it was more about the mum, you know, reflux in the mum, you know, during pregnancy.
Well, I get that now, and I'm not pregnant. I'm not too sure about that. I mean, I know quite a lot of people that get reflux, but I do know if they say that you get a lot of reflux in pregnancy, then that means the child's going to have long hair, or the child's going to have a lot of hair.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much that is, but that's what they say as well.
Great. Any other questions? No?
Oh, sorry, can you just pass that bag down there? So just quickly, I know it's Patricia's last day, so on behalf of the team, I'd just like to give her this little present. You're welcome, and everybody can say bye to her. Bless her.
Oh, thank you, Patricia.
She's been
Bye,
massive
Patricia.
help and really good person to have. So that's just a little bit of something from us.
Oh, thank you. That's really cool.
Come
I
back
wish you
soon.
all the best.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for all being so marvellous. Thank you so much. I can't wait to tell everybody at university about the service on Monday, because a lot of my student friends have absolutely no idea about it. So they're all excited to hear about it. So a lot of the OTs didn't even know it was a job role. So that's really exciting. So thank you all so very much.
And hopefully there's a lot of future for OTs in perinatal. So you might recruit some future people, and hopefully we recruited you.
Yeah. She was already talking about coming back and volunteering.
Yep.
Oh, brilliant.
So, hopefully next year, I would love to help with all the groups. So I'd love to do some volunteering next year. So I've actually contacted the volunteer services of it, sent them an email. So cross fingers, I'll still be seeing you next year.
Oh, fantastic.
You set up the bar high for the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She has.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
You're very pleasant. Always very, you're a very jolly person, aren't you? It's always nice to have you in the group.
See a smiling student, hey?
Thank you. That was really nice, actually. We were doing the paperwork, weren't we, yesterday, Sharon? And I was saying about how I struggle to write nice things about myself. I found it really hard to do, but it's really nice. Thank you all so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, so let's move on to Jordan. Back to you again. Thank you. And then I've let Lottie know if we have time, she can do her one as well. So she's on standby.
Okay, so this presentation's on about trafficked women. So what is human trafficking? So I've taken this from an article by Beck, and the definition they gave was the recruitment and movement of people using force, deception, abuse, or vulnerability for the purpose of exploitation. I've got some facts here about human trafficking. So women and girls make up 99% of victims in the commercial sex industry, 58% of victims in other sectors. Women who are trafficked often report experiences of violence, sexual abuse, and poor health consequences, including unwanted pregnancies. 11.4 million women and girls worldwide are trafficked. But this is just the tip of the iceberg, because it is a legal activity. A lot of stuff gets doesn't get reported, but there are studies showing that human trafficking is actually increasing. Kind of the offences are increasing, and phone calls to helplines have also been increasing as well. So why is this population relevant to the perinatal service? So as I said before, about a lot of women get unwanted pregnancies. So 1 in 4 become pregnant whilst being trafficked, and 71% of women who are trafficked are of childbearing age. So this means that a lot of the time they will be in contact with maternal clinicians who this mixed in with high rates of suicide, PTSD, sexual abuse, and mental health issues. Sorry, is it okay? Sorry, I get really distracted. Is it okay if we all turn our mics off, please? Thank you. So the pregnancy and the mental health issues related to all of this, that means that a lot of women, or quite a few women, are likely to come into the service or be referred on from their health professionals, from other health professionals. However, there are a lot of barriers to accessing maternal health care for women who are trafficked. So some of these are restrictions to liberty from the trafficker, language difficulties, because often a lot of women are trafficked from other countries, fear of their own safety, shame as well, fear of being charged a fee, not as in other countries. This might be the case. So kind of not having that information or education about the NHS is quite common as well. So again, not being able to know how to access the NHS services, perceived gatekeeping barriers, which is not wanting to sign up to doctors, and kind of doctors kind of refer you onto other services, so that's quite important. And concerns around confidentiality, worrying that maybe if they speak about being trafficked, then the police might get involved, and this might cause the person who's trafficking them to do all sorts, or there's just all sorts of risks with that, fears with that. And issues around continuity of care, which I thought was really interesting, because often women who have been trafficked will have to be in some point in their life will be relocated to other parts in the UK by immigration authorities. So, and the significance of admin work for clinicians' tasks with coordinating handover care. So there's both kind of issues with the women actually being relocated and all that comes from that, as well as the clinicians, all the work that comes from that for them as well. So there are some challenges in motherhood, which I thought was quite important to mention, just because these are some things that might be seen in quite a lot of women who come into the service, such as poverty in housing, not being able to afford to pay for formula for babies' toys, unsuitable housing for the children, no lifts, small space, untidy mold. There's a risk of re-trafficking to help support them in these financial hardships. Immigration from another country, so there's a whole host of things that come with that. So it's different traditions. Again, what I was saying, not knowing about kind of NHS services, separation from friends and family, who everyone knows how important social support is during this time. Mental health impact, which comes from all the abuse, can also impact the bond and ability to look after the baby. And there's a host of serious mental health problems that are linked with women who've been trafficked. Physical health problems being passed on to the baby as well. It's another thing. For example, HIV, brain injuries, other sexually transmitted diseases is quite a common one. Lack of social support, being single parent, isolation, and reconcile their mothering experiences with their past experiences of being mothered. And a lot of women, I think, want to be better parents than kind of the parents maybe that they had. And this can also bring a host of challenges in trying to be kind of the perfect parent when maybe you've not actually had the experiences of that, and that can also be quite challenging for them. So I can't remember I did this PowerPoint quite a while ago, so I can't remember exactly what study this was, but it was a qualitative study looking at mothers who had been trafficked. That's all I can remember. And these are just some quotes that I took from it that I thought were really interesting. So every mother wants to give her child what she didn't get. My child is good and deserving, that's why I suffer. I remained alone like this with a two-day-old child on my hands, and I was in shock. I didn't know anything. There was no mother by my side who would help me, explain to me how to change diapers, how to give him a bath. I'm only 22 years old. What could I know? I didn't know anything, why he was crying. I didn't know what to do. I didn't understand anything. I'm really upset sometimes because I don't want to think at all, because there are unpleasant and black thoughts all the time. I'm thinking, and they say to you, you worked in prostitution, and everywhere I go with Jenny, I'm all the time looking behind, because maybe somebody will say that you're not allowed to do this because we can say that you worked in prostitution. When I'm next to people who don't know it, then I can forget, but you're with people when you're with people, you all the time hear, like, someone hit you on the head, you're a slut, it's not nice. I just want to say to them that I'm Natasha, and an okay girl, mother of Leonid and Jenny. So I just thought that really kind of brought to life kind of some of the struggles that some mothers encounter during pregnancy, motherhood. So apart from the support that our service can give, I just thought of maybe some other support that we could maybe kind of refer people onto if they need this sort of help. So I was thinking housing support, support of how to get out of an abusive relationship, legal support, immigration support, asylum seeking and refuge support, employment, finance, substance misuse support, and all sorts of social support, maybe kind of apps like Peanut or kind of support groups as well. Yeah, so I also thought maybe I should do some kind of education around how to identify if someone is being trafficked and what to do next, which I took this from the NHS website. So signs that a patient may be a victim of trafficking. So is it someone who's accompanied by someone who appears controlling, who insists on giving information and coming in to see the health worker, is withdrawn and submissive, seems afraid to speak to a person in authority, and the accompanying person speaks for them, gives vague and inconsistent explanations of where they live, their employment or schooling, has old or serious injuries left untreated, either gives vague information or is reluctant to explain how the injury occurred or to give a medical history. Is not registered with a GP, nursery or school, has experience being moved locally, regionally, nationally or internationally, appears to be moving location frequently, appearance suggests general physical neglect, struggles to speak English, have no official means of identification or suspicious looking documents. It is usually a combination of triggers, an inconsistent story and a pattern of symptoms that may cause you to suspect trafficking. So yeah, it's important not to just think, oh, one of these things is going to mean that they're being trafficked. It's a combination of all, or a few. So what to do if you think a patient is being trafficked? So first of all, try to find out more about the situation and speak to the person in private without anyone accompanying them. When speaking to the person, reassure them that it's a safe them to speak. Do not make promises you cannot keep. Only ask non-judgmental, relevant questions. Allow the person time to tell you their experiences. Do not let concerns you may have about challenging cultural beliefs stand in the way of making informed assessments about the safety of a child, young person, or adult. Speak to your manager, colleagues, or local safeguarding leads for support and advice. So I just also put some helplines that if you maybe suspect someone being trafficked, just maybe passing this on to them. And these are great to know about. I've also got some more resources on here about kind of ways you can maybe direct people to different support services, and just a bit more about human trafficking in relation to maternity care as well. And that's everything. Thank you.
You have done a lot of work.
Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah, I did this actually so long ago. I did this quite a long time ago. So kind of going over it again, I'm like, oh, kind of don't really fully remember all the research I did then. I don't know why I thought there was a deadline. I did it in like a week, and for some reason, so I spent a whole week. So I thought there was a deadline, but no.
Has anyone got any questions or kind of thoughts on trafficked women? And I know that we do have some that come through our service and we do support them, and often kind of get stuck at times on finding something appropriate and supportive. But it's just such difficult and heavy stories, aren't they, as well? So yeah, I think looking at the signs that you'd put up there as well is really important.
Yeah, really helpful.
Would it be helpful to invite someone to our business meeting from time to time? I guess a speaker, maybe someone working in one of those organizations for us to be able, I know Jordan's put some links where we can find, but what else can we do really? Because sometimes the complexity, social complexity around them is one of the hurdles more than their mental health. I mean, I'm sure they have a lot of trauma, but it's quite a lot of them, they really want to move on. Like the lady you shared the lived experience is like, I just want to be treated as a mum of my kids and move on. But the system sometimes has quite a lot of obstacles for them. And Philippa's right in the comment, and they are not ready to do trauma work. That's not their priority at the moment. It's moving on and looking at the future. So I think it might be helpful if we invited to one of our business meetings, one of those people, or even if we decide in one of the complex cases to present one of those ladies, maybe invite someone from our organization so as they can help us a little bit more and educate.
There was a lady in one of the perinatal network meetings, a health visitor from Merton, who was doing a project, and she was looking after all of the ladies in the one in Collier's Wood. Can't remember her name.
And I think Leela mentioned something as well. I don't know if she's with us. Leela.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I send everyone to
Can't
Hestia.
see you. Okay.
Sorry. Hestia did do all our work for us. I noticed. I think our health visitors refer them to Hestia, and I've used Hestia with lots of kind of trafficked women and immigration complications in other parts of London as well. And they do so much work in terms of encouraging engagement with us, encouraging attendance to IAPT, and do all the social stuff, so much so that when they move out of borough, I feel like I'm always the last one to know, because they've sorted out, you know, a new home for them and everything.
Yeah, Hestia's really great. I've recently had someone with a support worker from Hestia, and they actually were willing to come and look after the baby if the woman wanted to do the trauma work, but she ended up choosing not to. But so kind of, if you have any piece of work that you feel would be helpful to do with women, they could be a good support as well and assisting you in that.
That's really good to know. And as I said, if we decide to present a case, or if we ever want a presentation from them, I'm sure they would come and do it.
Yeah. Who's got the details of how to contact Hestia and get their support? Is it on the shared drive anywhere?
They're definitely Googleable, but yeah, I don't know why my health visitors are really useful. And then I think, yeah, they're definitely, you can Google it. I mean, it's not that difficult to find, I don't think.
But sometimes you might need it antenatal more than just via postnatal, the health visitor. So
yeah, you know, I mean, yeah, Hestia will do everything. I mean, to my knowledge, Hestia like to work closely with mental health services. I mean, that's what they're used to doing.
Yeah. They do. That's my experience as well with the adult services. Yeah.
So it might be worth, like Maria says, inviting them along to something.
Yeah, it'd be good to add their kind of information onto the shared drive for resources.
And it seems that certain boroughs, the connection, like Leela has, is closer than ours, really. I know one of our ladies in Kingston and Richmond is with Hestia as well, but we've never seen them or linking up with us at all. So I think when
I had to ask the contact details and make contact myself, otherwise they wouldn't reach us. Yeah.
Yeah, so perhaps the person who comes to talk to us when we think about inviting would give us the numbers, the contact details of the 5 boroughs. That would be helpful. So how we can liaise with them. It's almost like if there's an email, generic email, and there's this lady's been referred to us, can we please link up? If the lady gives permission, that would be useful.
Yeah. And Lydia, you've written, Jordan, you've got some stuff as well saying, Lydia thinks you need to be referred through the Salvation Army because the Hestia work on this project with them.
But as I said, there's a few gaps. We need to understand how it works, how the referrals get to them, what's the best way to communicate if the person gives agreement, and what can they do, particularly when we're thinking about discharging as well, and the person moving forward, and they might not fulfill the criteria for secondary care. And sometimes we are left a bit, what next, really? So I think it would be really helpful if we could invite them without a hurry, just identify the right person, and they can signpost.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's good. Any other thoughts or questions? No? Well, thank you, Jordan, for that. So I think we could probably squeeze Lottie in if she's ready. I've got her on standby. I said, no, you don't need to do it. And yeah, you can do it now. So I don't know if you know if you're coming or going.
I mean, it's not that long, but I mean, I understand that people are kind of a bit brain dead now, so I don't mind having another week off, so it's fine.
Do people want to, who are you doing again, Lottie?
Sri Lankan and Tamil.
we've got 45 minutes or just 40 minutes or so. So if it's not
I
too long.
100% will not be taking that long. Do not worry. So.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead then. You might as well start.
Can I
all
just
right.
check if we're going to have sort of 10-15 minutes at the end, because we're going straight into huddle? Okay,
Yeah, we should do, because it sounds like Lottie's not going to be too long.
thanks.
Yeah. Let me just share screen. Okay, can you see this?
Yep.
Cool. Let me just. Okay, so I will be focusing on Sri Lankan and Tamil communities, focusing more on sort of baby shower and kind of the traditions before birth and kind of after birth. Just a full disclaimer, I have no real sort of knowledge or heritage around here. So if I do say anything that's wrong, please don't have a go at me, because it was not intentional. So across both cultures, it's a big thing that actually pregnancy cravings are not ignored, and that actually it could be actually quite detrimental to the baby if the women aren't given what they are sort of craving for. And it tends to be in both baby showers and across the cultures that the woman specifically is gifted lots of sort of jewelry, new clothes, and food, and the couple are also gifted with lots of new foods. And specifically, they focus on quite sweet and starchy food. So this is one of the dishes. I've taken a little screenshot here. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the words, but yeah, it's just more it's like they use sort of quite a lot of condensed milk and rice and all the nice sort of fancy looking stuff. So within Tamil baby showers, so Seemantham or Seemantha, that actually refers to that word actually refers to the parting of the hair just above the eyebrow, where reportedly their goddess of wealth resides. And so when a woman actually delivers, there's a practice of actually applying turmeric or saffron there, so she is considered to be the embodiment of this goddess. And it's carried out during the 6th to the 8th month of the pregnancy, and is usually only limited to the firstborn. But I think actually nowadays, as it's become more of kind of like a craze, they actually spread it across. They do it with every single child they have. And it's believed that also that the baby's memory cells are said to have started activating from 7 months, and so thereafter they feel that the unborn child can feel and sense sounds and vibrations from its surroundings. And so this actually leads to a practice called Vedic. So this is where over about an hour and a half there are recitals made towards the mum and the baby inside her stomach, and then which is then followed by her being bathed in cold holy water in the late evening. And it's believed that this cold sensation on the womb leaves the baby becoming like stimulated and can shake and jerk, and which they feel that actually is preparing both the mother's mind for birth through these positive vibrations, and makes the sort of baby feel a bit more alive. And then following this, like I said earlier, the women are decorated with these colourful bangles and dressed in new clothes, and these are usually gifted by the women and the girls in the family. And then she's then sent to her family's home to stay for 2 months prior to the delivery. And so within Sri Lanka, I got this from like a blog, and it says, in our culture, women who have just given birth are not allowed to touch the stove for 1 month and are asked to take rest. The tradition was an indirect way of keeping the woman from undertaking her usual housekeeping duties, and to instead spend time getting to know her baby and cementing that bond. I think it's a very sweet tradition. I'm not sure how many people still follow it because they can't or don't have the luxury of that type of postnatal care, but the premise behind it definitely holds an important message that women deserve good care after having a baby. And I think that's quite relevant for our service, really, because there is always that big focus on making sure there is that positive bond between mum and baby. And I think also them speaking about it, mentioning not having the luxury of the postnatal care, or they can't actually follow it because of maybe socioeconomic reasons, if she's a single mother, blah blah blah. It's kind of those important things to sort of take into account when seeing these women. With religion, so Sri Lanka has 4 official religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity. And this is from another blog where there were women speaking about their sort of religions from their family, and how they had to sort of take that into when they were pregnant and when they had just given birth, and how that would have to be reflected into their post-birth. So there was this one lady who says, my husband is Buddhist and I'm Hindu by birth. So in order to be inclusive of both cultures, we had a Buddhist Pirith ceremony when I was transitioning into my 8th month of pregnancy. And we also held a Hindu puja prior to the birth. And since we live with my parents who are Orthodox Hindus, we undertook the ritual of shaving the baby's head on the 30th day of his birth, which was followed by the naming ceremony the next day. And so just going back to the Pirith. So Pirith is sort of where there's lots of chants and singing towards the mum for the well-being of the mother and the baby. And the parents choose the baby's name when it's born, but it's actually confirmed at the naming ceremony. And so during this time, sort of those 30 days, that baby's name can actually change. And so it's actually really only confirmed on that actual day. So then with Muslim traditions, they wrap the child in a white soft shawl, and the shawl signifies purity, which is meaningful because the Prophet had also done this for his children, and recite the azan, which is a call to prayer, in the baby's right ear. In the left ear, they recite the ikama, a reaffirmation of faith, and then a dab of dates and honey are also given to the baby. And then with this tradition, on the 7th day, a naming ceremony is held, and relatives are called, prayers are said, and ladies usually leave home with a gift, which is usually glassware or something for the house, plus again some sweet foods. In childhood, infants are traditionally kept with their mothers or female relatives. Babies are carried until they can walk and sleep with their mothers until they are of school age, at which age they are encouraged to move into a bed with their siblings. And nearly all mothers breastfeed their children, usually through the first year. Throughout childhood, important rituals are conducted around culturally significant milestones, such as feeding of solid food and the introduction of letters of the alphabet to their speech. As children grow, they are expected to develop a sense of lajawa, a feeling of combined shyness, shame, modesty, and fear, and it's cultivated early in the early childhood and used to teach self-control. So whether that's around sort of like potty training, which starts at 1 year, and then weaning and into sort of nudity and then into the later school years and ages. And I think that's quite relevant because obviously we see a lot of diverse cultures and religions with the women that we work with, and I think it's important to keep hold of those pockets of knowledge around their certain traditions and how actually something that may seem a little bit peculiar to us actually could be something very sacred and very important for that culture. I think that's very really important to keep in mind. And then just also as to why Sri Lankan and Tamil cultures are actually particularly relevant to us in the perinatal service here is that it's just estimated that the British population of Sri Lankan and Tamils is around 100 to 200,000 people, with the largest of this population being found partly in Tooting, which obviously is very relevant for us. And I think, yeah, it's just one of those things that we need to kind of bear in mind, that they are it's a large representation of our caseload, I would say, and we've got to keep an eye and be mindful of their cultures and customs and how something may seem a little bit odd, but actually maybe it isn't. And they are some pictures of some women at their baby showers, and that is it.
I'm just looking at all that food.
I know, so much food.
Lunchtime. Oh, well, thank you for that. That was really kind of nice and precise and quick. And so, yeah, that was good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or thoughts?
Yes.
Hi.
One lady recently was taking her baby to the temple just at 6 months because they were going to with the grandparents because they were going to bless the baby's first food and have the first food in the temple, which I thought was a lovely celebration. She just had a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Oh.
Lotte, it's really interesting what you said, that as from the age of 1, they are taught about this being almost like restraint, self-control.
Yeah, like little humans, little adults.
Yeah. And I had a lady from Sri Lanka whose son was diagnosed quite early with autism. And I think it's because she was struggling with that, with trying to, if you want, educate him with these traditions or those principles. And the child, of course, wouldn't play ball with any of these, with quite a middle sort of grade severe autism.
I think it's quite difficult.
Really struggling.
it's really difficult as well, especially when they have that first year where they're basically latched onto their mum, and there's kind of, if anything, too much of a sort of an attachment there. So when they're suddenly expected to become this little independent person at the age of 1 and onwards, it must be such a huge shock to their system to be a bit like, eh.
That transition must be really hard, and let alone if you have, in addition, some other problems.
Exactly, yeah.
It'd be interesting, actually, from that 1 year onwards, what health visitors would perceive and see in that child in terms of what their, you know, their kind of cultures.
I guess
as
we'll
well
be
as,
seeing it soon as well, won't we?
yeah, potentially, yes. Any other questions?
Before everybody heads off, I wanted to mention something really quickly. Has anybody else come across the term doula?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I met a client the other day who actually had a doula, and I've actually had 2 other patients who mentioned it, and I thought it was a cultural thing, and I found out it's actually not. So I learned the word doula means woman servant. It's a Greek word, but from what I've understood, a doula is somebody that supports a woman during pregnancy and birth. But I just didn't know if anybody else had come across this before.
Yeah.
Had some clients who've had doulas.
Cultural side comes into it, because I've got a lady, an Indian lady, who her and her husband have actually hired a doula to live with them for like the first 4 weeks post birth. So she literally just had the baby this was it this week or last week, sorry. And the doula's now there. She's met with the family. It's to kind of help her with following her traditional customs, because her mum couldn't fly over because of COVID. So yeah, I think the doulas are used generically, but I think she specifically found a cultural one that would support her cultural background.
Funny enough, I heard of it on a program I watched, New Amsterdam, and there's a lady there that's pregnant, but she's pregnant with an autistic partner, and they've got a doula in that program.
Yeah, and actually one of the ladies, because I think some of the Kingston midwives are referring some of the ladies that have been trafficked for a doula, because a couple of those ladies have had doulas, and they've been put in contact with them via the midwives.
There is a service for some women who don't have anyone else to be with them in labour, that you can refer them to this doula service. I sent it around ages ago. I wonder, it's probably the same thing.
You did. We found it this morning.
Oh, good.
I'll send it back round again. But what we was wondering is whether we can use them, and whether they if there's a cost associated to them, and whether they've been vetted or not.
I think it was free. I think it was a free service. You have to make a referral.
Yeah, it's a free service, I think. Yeah, pass it on to Aristina. It's free, but they work for a particular time. So they would be with the family up to a particular time, but it's a free service and you have to make a referral, because it's not a lot of them though.
Oh, I can't find it. How do you spell it again?
Yeah.
I thought it was DU.
D-O-U-A.
DU, isn't it? D-U-L-A?
D-O-U-L-A.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Doula. Yeah, you can go and do all these sorts of courses and become a doula if you want to.
Yeah, I saw that. I actually went onto the website. I tried to give them a call to find out more information, because it's doula.co.uk. But what I could see is that it's like a 3-day course that they do, that they pay for. So I don't know how kind of training they get. But yeah, I just thought it was really interesting to bring, because I didn't honestly had no idea. I've never heard of that at all. So
it's quite common, I find, in kind of more affluent areas. Used.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed actually. Yeah, because I used to be a nanny, so I've met au pairs and nannies, but I just never heard of doula. So yeah.
I've just sent it back around to everybody if you wanted to have a kind of look at it.
Yeah. Oh, great. Okay. Thank you, everybody. That was really, really good. It was a bit of a whirlwind tour around the world, which I really, really like. So I'll send round the next one and the invite and the timetable. But yeah, no, thanks. We got everybody in today, so that was good. And yeah, thank you to Jordan, who's going to leave us tomorrow, but we're having a leaving lunch thing with her. So We'll catch up. Okay, great.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's really interesting.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks
Bye.
very much.
Bye. See you, Patricia.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
we're meeting at 2:00, aren't we?
Yeah.
And we have a guest coming today.
Yeah, I think he's going to be with us just wants to see how we do things, and he may just have a few questions, but myself and Jill will be there as
We
well.
agreed we'll start with zoning, am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have few ladies with the social care aspect.
Yeah.
Quite challenging as well.
Yeah, and I think if he's coming from social services, we want to show him those things that.
Yeah, instead of spending time discussing new referrals. If he hasn't changed, I spoke to Drew this morning and we only have 3 new referrals today.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah, so it gives us more time to spend, maybe if we have these guests coming from social services around our zoning. Yeah.
All right. Okay, I'm going to join.
See you at 2:00. Yeah.
See you in a bit.
Thanks,
Bye.
Aki, for organising. Bye.
See you later. Bye.